A lavish party, champagne flowing, laughter echoing through the grand hall. But in the corner, a woman stands frozen, her smile fading as cruel words slice through the air. They didn't know she was the reason they'd soon lose everything. And when she made the call that night, a $900 million deal vanished in thin air. The chandeliers sparkled like frozen rain above the grand hall, their golden light bathing the room in a warm glow that hid the cold undercurrents running beneath. The laughter. Crystal glasses clinked in practiced rhythm, and the air was thick with the scent of imported roses, expensive perfume, and carefully curated arrogance. The estate stood as a monument to wealth and lineage, the kind of place where portraits of ancestors gaze down from gilded frames, silently reminding everyone of who belongs and who doesn't. She stepped inside with the grace of someone who knew she had earned her place anywhere she chose to stand. Her gown was simple but elegant, the kind of understated style that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. Her heels clicked softly against the polished marble, each step measured. Her chin lifted just enough to meet the curious stares that greeted her. The doorman had been polite, but his eyes flicked over her in a way that catalogued and measured. Beyond him, the first wave of guests turned to look. Some smiled briefly before turning back to their conversations. Others leaned toward each other, voices dipping just enough for her to catch the cadence, but not the words, though the intent was clear. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny on her skin like the press of a torn spotlight. As she moved further into the room, her presence seemed to ripple through the clusters of people, sparking small murmurs behind champagne flutes. A pair of women near the grand piano tilted their heads toward her, their pearls swaying as one whispered, "Do you think she was invited?" The other smirked, replying just loudly enough for her to catch, "Maybe she's here to work the event. That dress is interesting." Neither of them looked directly at her again, but their voices lingered in her ears like a sour note. She let the comment pass, her eyes scanning the crowd instead of lingering on their petty amusement. The host family made their entrance soon after. A perfectly staged tableau of power-tailored suits, glittering jewelry, and the kind of smiles that never reach the eyes. They moved toward her with the air of people greeting a distant acquaintance they couldn't quite place. Their handshake was firm, but the tone was syrupy and slow, as if each word had to be carefully pronounced, so she might understand. Compliments on her bravery for attending an event like this slipped from their lips like polished insults, dressed up in charm but sharpened with something far less polite. As they turned to introduce her to a cluster of nearby guests, real performance began. "She's new to this circle," one of them said with a laugh that didn't invite her to laugh along. "Still finding her footing, I imagine." The group chuckled softly, eyes flicking to her and then away, as though she were an oddity that might vanish if they didn't look too closely. Another leaned forward conspiratorially and asked, "So, who exactly brought you here?" The question was posed like small talk, but the meaning was clear. What was her purpose here, and did she even belong? She answered with the same calm. She'd brought through the door, offering no more than necessary. Her tone was smooth, polite and neutral, refusing to feed the bait dangling in front of her. If they were looking for cracks in her composure, they found none. Inside, she measured them with the same precision they used on her, mapping the subtle alliances. The way conversations shifted when certain names were mentioned, and who seemed to command the real attention in the room. Every smirk, every half-glance, every whispered exchange painted a clearer picture. Later, near the fireplace, she caught the sound of a small group's laughter. Their voices carried more than they realized, spilling into the lull between the music and chatter. One man, drink in hand, said something with a grin that made the others laugh harder. The words mocking her background in a way they thought clever landed in the air between them like a slap. No one corrected him. No one looked ashamed. Instead, they laughed louder, confident she couldn't hear or wouldn't dare respond. She didn't give them the satisfaction of either. Keta, her eyes passed over them as if they were furniture. Her face as serene as if she hadn't understood the insult at all. But she understood. Every word, every tone, every smirk that told her exactly what they thought she was, more importantly, what they thought she wasn't. She let the moment hang in silence inside her mind, not as a wound, but as a nota record of the kind of people she was dealing with. She knew the type well, the kind who saw only what they expected to see, blind to what stood right in front of them. A waiter passed with a tray of champagne, and she took a glass, the crystal cool in her hand. The bubbles caught the light like tiny stars, but her gaze wasn't on the drink. She was watching the room, seeing the power dynamics play out with the precision of a chessboard. She could tell who deferred to whom, who was bluffing with too loud laughter, who wielded real influence without saying a word. In these circles, power wasn't just about money, it was about perception. And they had already decided hers was worth dismissing. They were wrong. The night wore on, each interaction peeling back another layer of their polished masks. She was asked condescending questions about her line of work, offered advice from people who didn't care to know her experience, introduced two others with vague, dismissive phrases that told the listener she was of little consequence. Yet with every slight, her composure only deepened, her smile holding steady, her voice warm but distant. From across the room, a man she hadn't met yet watched her for a long moment. He wasn't smiling, he wasn't whispering, he was observing. She met his gaze briefly, and something flickered their recognition, perhaps, or suspicion. She didn't linger, moving on as though nothing had passed between them. The party was a performance, and she played her part perfectly, letting them underestimate her at every turn. They thought they were ignoring a nobody. They thought they were safe in their little stage of wealth and tradition. They didn't know they were handing her every reason she needed. In the far corner, the group from earlier laughed again at another poorly disguised jab. This time, she didn't even glance their way. Instead, she turned toward the balcony doors, the cool night air, beyond calling her for a moment's reprieve. She walked slowly, her heels tapping a steady rhythm that matched. Her heartbeat not quickened by anger, but steady with resolve. Because this was not the end of the evening for her. Not really. This was only the opening act. And while they saw her as an outsider tonight, soon they would learn the truth. She was not just a guest here. She was something far more dangerous to their world than they could imagine. Papt had only just begun. The music softened as the evening reached its most polished moment. Glasses were refilled, the hum of conversation stilled, and the host family moved to the center of the room with the easy confidence of people who believed every eye belonged on them. One of them tapped a spoon gently against the rim of a champagne flute, the clear chime carrying through the air like a signal. Conversations fell silent. Smiles turned expectant. A photographer shifted discreetly to capture the moment. The family's patriarch sharp suit, rehearsed charm lifted his glass and began to speak. His voice rolled smoothly over the room, thanking the assembled guests for being part of such an important chapter in our history. He spoke of tradition, legacy, and influence, each word draped in pride. But when he mentioned the extraordinary business deal they had in the works, his tone swelled. This, he promised, would not just secure their future, it would redefine it. The crowd responded with the polite murmur of approval wealthy people, save for moments when they smell profit. He paused, letting the suspense settle before adding, "But before we say too much, we'd like to invite someone special to join us. She's here tonight as our honored guest, and we think it would be lovely for her to share a few words." His eyes found her through the crowd, and the gesture was so pointed, so staged, that every head turned to follow. Applause rose around her, polite but curious. She set down her glass, moving toward them with measured steps, aware of the undercurrent in their smiles. On the small platform at the center of the room, the light felt hotter, the air thinner. She accepted the microphone they offered her, its weight a reminder of the attention now fixed on her. Her gaze swept the crowd-polished gowns, tailored tuxedos, every expression a mask. Began speaking with quiet confidence, her words measured, offering a simple acknowledgement of the evening's beauty and the generosity of the hosts. She spoke not as someone begging for their approval, but as someone who understood the elegance of brevity. Halfway through her second sentence, the voice came loud, cutting, and meant for maximum reach. Such an interesting background. You have... The way the word interesting curled in his mouth turned it into something sour. Laughter bubbled up from a handful of guests, quick and sharp, the kind that bites before it fades. She didn't look toward the man who had spoken. Instead, her eyes stayed forward, her expression unshaken, though inside, a quiet note of finality struck. The host family made no move to intervene. One of them, standing just behind her, allowed the corner of their mouth to twitch upward in a smirk so fleeting most would have missed it. But she saw it. They let the moment stretch so the room could savor it. The laughter faded into a hum of awkward shuffling, the kind that follows a joke a few people realize might have gone too far. She took a breath, let the silence settle, and then lowered the microphone slightly. "Thank you," she said softly, the words even and unreadable. And then she handed the microphone back without finishing her thought. No flustered excuse, no defensive retort, just a quiet withdrawal. She stepped down from the platform, her heels silent now, moving through the parted crowd without once looking back. The balcony doors opened to a rush of cool air, the city stretching out beyond in a wash of lights and distant noise. She stepped into the night, the hum of the party dulled behind the glass. Leaning slightly against the railing, she let her eyes trace the skyline, breathing deeply not to calm herself from embarrassment, but to steady the calculation taking shape in her mind. This was no longer about enduring their arrogance. This was about deciding what to do with it. The sound of soft footsteps drew her attention. A man approached, hesitating before stepping fully into the balcony's glow. His voice was low, almost cautious. "I wanted to apologize for what happened in there. They can be unkind." She glanced at him, studying his face, his posture, the way his eyes didn't quite meet hers. He seemed genuine, though uncomfortable. "You don't have to," she replied evenly, but he pressed on. "I just thought you should know," he paused, looking over his shoulder toward the party before leaning in slightly. "They've been boasting all night about some exclusive deal with a major investor. Big numbers, big promises, acting like it's already theirs." Her brow lifted slightly, though she kept her voice neutral. "When they don't realize," he continued, "that you're connected to the investor in ways they clearly have no idea about." He gave a small, almost incredulous shake of his head. "If they knew, they'd be falling over themselves to treat you differently. But they don't. And I guess that's their mistake." His words hung between them, the night air carrying their weight. She didn't respond right away, letting the revelation sink deeper, not because it surprised her, but because it clarified everything. The laughter, the smirks, the deliberate humiliation, it wasn't just petty cruelty. It was arrogance so ingrained they couldn't even see the ground crumbling beneath them. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with precision. Inside, the pieces slid neatly into place. The whispers behind the champagne flutes, the smugness of their toasts, the pride in their voices as they spoke of the dalal of it, fit now into a single, simple truth. They believed the world was theirs to manipulate. And tonight, they had tried to make her the evening's amusement. The man shifted uncomfortably, as though sensing the quiet change in the air around her. She gave him a small nod of acknowledgement, nothing more, and turned her gaze back to the city lights. In the distance, traffic moved like veins of fire, the pulse of a city that belonged to no one and everyone at once. She stayed on the balcony a few moments longer, her breath steady, the chill of the air cooling her skin. About the insult anymore? She was thinking about the leverage. The deal they'd bragged about as if it were already signed. The ignorance that had let them treat her as an outsider while their future balanced quietly in her reach. She knew exactly how to respond. And it wouldn't happen here, under the chandelier's glow, or in the shallow smiles of the people inside. This was a decision to be made elsewhere, with fewer words and far more consequence. Tonight, they thought they'd put her on the spot. Soon, they'd realize she had been the one holding the spotlight all along. The night air was sharp as she closed the door of her car, soft click sounding like the final punctuation on the evening's performance. Inside, the leather seats cradled her, but she sat still, fingers resting lightly on the steering wheel as her mind replayed the scene, the laughter that wasn't, the whispers that cut deeper than any shout. The insults weren't wounds, but mirrors, reflecting the arrogance so deeply embedded in that family's world that they couldn't see past their own entitlement. She let the quiet fill the space around her, each breath steady, her thoughts precise. This wasn't about hurt feelings. It was about a reckoning long overdue. Her fingers moved deliberately, pulling her phone from the console. The screen lit up. Numbers dialed with calm certainty. The familiar voice on the other end greeted her with warmth and curiosity, asking how the night had gone. She responded without hesitation, her tone composed but firm. She described the evening not as a victim recounting wrongs, but as a strategist laying out facts. The subtle condescension from the hosts, the public humiliation designed to unsettle. Her, the arrogance that had blinded them to who she really was. Each word was measured clear, leaving no space for doubt or misunderstanding. The voice on the line absorbed her account in silence, the weight of the story settling between them. Then came the question, quiet but loaded. "Are you sure you want me to do this?" Her response was immediate, resolute, a single sentence that carried the power of finality. "Yes. Cancel everything." What followed was swift and decisive. Within hours, emails flew out like silent missiles. Contracts once thought sealed were ripped apart by the cold efficiency of corporate protocol. The $900 million deal, the jewel in the family's crown, vanished as if it had never existed. Clause, every promise, every handshake was undone by a few keystrokes. And the ramifications rippled through the networks connected to that estate. Meanwhile, back at the party, the hosts continued their celebration, oblivious to the storm brewing. Just beyond the gilded walls, they raised glasses and toasts, filled with hubris, their laughter louder, their smiles wider, completely unaware that their empire was beginning to crumble. Their confidence was their downfall, built on assumptions that tonight had shattered, like fragile glass. In the quiet of her car, she allowed herself a brief moment to close her eyes, not in relief, but in preparation. This was only the beginning. The night's events had exposed more than just personal slights. They had revealed a weakness born from arrogance. She was ready to turn that weakness into consequence, but on her terms, far away from the prying eyes and false smiles. The decision to cancel the deal was not just a financial move, it was a message. A reminder that respect was not a currency to be traded lightly, nor a privilege to be bestowed selectively. It was something earned, upheld, and protected. And when broken, it came at a cost far greater than money. As the city lights flickered, outside her window, she sat poised between worlds, one of privilege and deception, and one of quiet strength and resolve. The balance was shifting, and soon, those who had dismissed her would learn just how powerful a single choice could be. Morning arrived with a suddenness that shattered the calm facade. The wealthy family had clung to all night. Phones buzzed relentlessly on polished mahogany desks and through sleek leather handbags. Calls flooded in from lawyers demanding explanations, investors seeking reassurances, and media outlets hungry for the scandal that had begun to ripple through business. Circles like wildfire. The air in the family's sprawling estate was thick with tension. The previous night's celebration replaced by frantic whispers and the sharp clatter of keyboards as assistants scrambled to control the damage. Rumors swirled faster than anyone could confirm. The $900 million deal with the crown, jewel of their ambitions, had been scrapped. Frustration and disbelief coursed through the family as they tried to uncover the cause of the sudden collapse. Each call seemed to end in more confusion than clarity. No one would provide a direct answer. Emails bounced back with terse statements. and meetings meant to clarify the situation dissolved into vague excuses and hurried cancellations. Finally, a trusted mutual contact offered the truth, delivered quietly and with an undertone of warning. The decision had come straight from the investor's office. Final and without explanation. A heavy silence settled over the room as the family absorbed the words. Then, like a flash of lightning, the memory struck. The woman at the party. The one they had mocked with thinly veiled contempt, whose presence they had belittled and dismissed. The realization spread panic through the veins of the family. The carefully constructed image of control now felt fragile and exposed in a desperate bid to salvage their reputation and recover what had been lost. The family sent a carefully worded message, laden with contrition and excuse. They apologized for the evening's events, insisting it had been all just a misunderstanding. They offered to meet privately, hoping to smooth over the rift and reignite the possibility of the deal, but the response was swift and decisive. She declined the offer with a message as brief as it was clear. Respect is not optional. Consider this a lesson. Those words echoed louder than any apology, a final verdict that left no room for negotiation or false hope. Weeks later, the story reached its quiet but undeniable conclusion. She entered a new boardroom, not one filled with pretense or condescension, but with people who recognized her worth and respected her position. Here, the smiles were genuine, the handshakes firm, and the conversations meaningful. She moved with the ease of someone who no longer needed to prove her place, because here, her place was already earned and unquestioned. As the camera of the mind's eye pulls back, the voiceover closes with a truth that lingers. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply walks away, takes everything with it. The quiet strength of one woman had appended an empire built on arrogance, reminding all who witnessed the tale that true power lies not in noise or spectacle, but in the calm certainty of self-respect and resolve.